Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this virtual shiva for Gershon Sabol, Rabbi Gershon Sabol. I am Yitzchak Hecht. Together with my many cousins, are lucky to be able to say the Rabbi Gershon Sabol is Uncle Gershon Sabol, and that is why I was asked, being one of the nephews, to ask to lead tonight's shiva. I want to begin by saying that the family has said that they are very thankful for this, for everyone tuning in at this time. Unfortunately, for whatever reason it is, the Eibishter has it set in such a way that we cannot come together in a physical way. But we will not allow that to hold us back, and we will find other ways to make sure to continue to come together, and especially in a time like this, and a time of need. During World War I, there were many Rabbanim at the time that were asking to make days of fast days, to ask the Eibishter to send world peace and to end the terrible war at the time. The famous Munkach Rebbe, the Minchas HaLazar, was totally against it. And he said the reason is, what's going to happen? There'll be world peace and we'll go back to the tzadis we had a little while ago. We have to get rid of all the tzadis. We need Mashiach. Well, at this time, we come together giving chizuk to Gershon's family. It's not just bringing them nechama, but we're saying that the Eibishter should not just end this virus. So many other people, they should have a refuah shalema immediately. But we're asking from the Eibishter that we need Mashiach and we need Tchias HaMesim, and it should all happen now, that we could all be reunited before Pesach to be able to do Pesach the right way in the Beis HaMikdash with the Karban Pesach. It should happen immediately. Amen. We have a few speakers here tonight that will share a little bit about my Uncle Gershon from different perspectives. The first speaker is really very special. It's the middle of the night for him in England, and he has stayed up late or woke up very early to be able to join us at this time. Rabbi Aryeh Sufrin, who is a member of the British Empire, and he is the head shliach to Essex, UK. I was told once by a American bacher who was learning in London in the yeshiva there in England. He came back. He said Rabbi Sufrin is known throughout England to be one of the biggest movers and shakers amongst the shluchim. He really makes a lot happen over there for the Jewish community. Rabbi Sufrin has a very special relationship, as when he was a yeshiva bacher, he was a friend and a chaver together with Gershon, the yeshiva bacher at the same time. And then years later, b'hashgacha pratis, they are now related, mechutanim, as their children have married. And we ask Rabbi Sufrin to please begin tonight's program with to share with us a few words.
Thank you very much, Yitzchak, my nephew Yitzchak. It's obviously a very difficult and challenging task that we have here just now. And I'm honored and privileged to be a part of this shiva chizuk. And in the world that we live, which we seem to be so distant from one perspective, that we are 3,500 miles away on a different time zone. Nonetheless, we are very much connected and extremely close together in our hearts. Obviously, our thoughts and feelings and empathy and nechama goes out to our dear Machatenista, to Rochel, our son-in-law Levi, his siblings, David, and the entire Hecht family, and the entire community who Gershon, Oliver Sholom, touched in so many different ways. And in the few minutes that I'm allowed, I'm going to try and come to share with you from various perspectives. Let's talk a little bit chizuk from this week's parsha, where we find ourselves, where this occurrence of Gershon's petira, untimely petira, takes place during the week in which we prepare ourselves for Shabbos HaGadol, Parshat Tzav and Shabbos HaGadol. There are various customs as to which Haftorah one reads, but if one reads the Haftorah of Shabbos HaGadol, which comes from Malachi, and the first couple of Pesukim seem extremely strange. where the first pasuk opens out, Ba'orba la'Hashem minchas Yehuda Yerushalayim ki ma'olam uchshoni kadmonias. The pasuk begins to tell us about the approach that the Almighty will take in terms of judgment. And he goes on to talk about the approach that the Almighty will take against sorcerers, adulterers, those who swear falsely, those who withhold the wages of laborers, the widow, the orphan, and those who pervert the right of the stranger. How does this fit in at all with the time of year that we are preparing ourselves with, the Man Cheresenu, the time of our rejoicing, Pesach, where Pesach is about freedom. Pesach is about getting rid of these shackles and chains and moving forward in a direction which is going to give us freedom, joy, and happiness. How does this fit in? This seems like more of Haftarah, which is related to Shabbos Shuvah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, where a person's mind is thinking about their spiritual objectives and perhaps where we've done wrong or we need to correct ourselves and so on. How does this actually fit in? Only we have to say that when we're talking about freedom, it doesn't necessarily mean the freedom that we purely understand on a physical sense. Freedom concerned with a moral discipline, perhaps, question mark. Or is it blessing and it's a privilege? So when we're looking at, it's no surprise when our Mefarshim talk about cherus as freedom, as choros, something which is choros ala luchos, which is engraved on the luchos, that there's do's and there's don'ts. And we have to understand that in the life that we live, that there is an order to life. And within that order, that is where the cherus actually comes from. That is where the cherus actually is real. And I believe that in Gershon's life, this is where his cherus was, in this choros. The cherus, the freedom of being able to stand up outside of the crowd. Shabbos HaGadol is about the courage and that was greatness that was necessary to defy society, to take that lamb when everybody else was looking. This is how Gershon lived his life. My first engagement with Gershon was when I was 15 or 16 years old in camp. This was a similar time to the Sufrin Hecht's engagement as families came together, but even earlier than that. And a picture that I found recently, which has been shared, is a picture of Rabbi Yaakov Yehuda Hecht in the middle, as Gershon on his right side, and me on his left side. Gershon is dressed like an entrepreneur, as Rabbi Hecht, Olav Shalom, always was. And I guess, at that time was a truck driver. I was schlepping up and down where there was a Lag BaOmer parade. But our intricacies of connection go back so many years, long before we became a chatonim. And my early memories are those of Gershon in camp in Montreal particularly. His zest for doing the right thing and making sure that the children in Gan Yisroel, Montreal at the time, had everything that they needed in every possible way. The Ruchnius and the Gashmius. We can all, those of us remembering from those years, his sailor's hat always had a smile. This picture has a smile. Those pictures, all of them, are all with big smiles on his face. He had this simchas hachaim in terms of his direction in life, where he wanted to go and what he wanted to do. Others will speak about his various other aspects of life, but whether it was about singing, creating songs which are now being publicized, happened Yom Kippur, we sing it all in our homes. It was part of the record that we made together for Gan Yisroel, New York, which I still have an old, I forgot what they call the big plastic LP. Thank you. My wife's telling me it's an LP. And he was part and parcel of that. Later on in life, as we became close to Mechatonim, I really want to share a very quick thought on this, because Gershon himself was somebody that was Choros and Cheres. Cheres, he had the courage to speak out in a world that was changing. He held on to the old ideals, but at the same time, he was so clear about what needed to be done. Learning was, we used to joke about him. He never takes his face out of the Chumash, the Rambam, the Chitas on a daily basis. And when it came to times that we spent together and speaking together, I would be the one that spoke from the front. And the last simcha that we had only a year ago together, celebrating our eldest Einikel together, our Dov, Dolazain Gesund, his bar mitzvah. I spoke in shul, and Gershon drank, had a farbrengen, and he says, I can also speak, but I can't speak like him. But what he spoke was tachlis. What he spoke was tachlis. It was a Rebbe's Maimah, or was a something which was important to him. On a personal note, it's not just a mechutin that we're missing at this time. It's a very, very dear friend. Gershon to me was a very, very dear friend. Whenever we spoke often, whenever I came to New York to visit our children, we used to go out for breakfast. I'm really going to miss those Monsi's breakfast where we talked about the whole world, what was going on in his life, what was going on in my life, his management skills in which he helped me in certain directions in my shlichus. And this is the courage that he had. He stood up, turned organizations, turned people and into real things and into real people and real direction. For his family, I want to say this. He cared and loved every one of his children. Each one was different, and he knew he had to engage with them in a different way. And sometimes may feel that daddy perhaps overlooked me or didn't speak to me in the right way. He could have spoke to me the other way. Gershon, deep down, together with Rachel, loved each and every one of their children, and they care for each one of their children. And we're traveling the journey that each one of you were traveling. And you got to remember that he was with you in every part of the journey as you are traversing the challenges of life today and working out your own paths in life where you want to be and where you need to be and where you're getting to, and you'll get there, and Mitzvah Hashem with his help. The end of the Parshas, with this I'll conclude, the end of Parshas Tzav ends with the words, Vayas Aaron Avonov Eis Kol Advarim Asher Tziva Hashem Es Moshe. That Aaron and his sons did everything that Hashem commanded them. And Rashi says, Shaloi Hitu Yaminu Small, they didn't deviate right and left. What is that? It's because Aaron was the older brother and he was listening to that which Moshe was telling him. And he didn't deviate from it because the Eibishter told him to do so. To the whole family, to the extended family, the siblings of which we feel so close to, from the eldest in the Hecht family, Kanai Nahora Zolzain Gesund, to the youngest. We're part and parcel of this family. And I know that for some of you, Gershon is a younger brother, and for some of you, Gershon is an older brother. But loihi tia miyomin osmoil, we have to look at his accomplishments in life and say that he was indeed in his own right a Godel. In his own right, he was somebody that had great achievements and he had a focus. He knew where he wanted to be, and we could all learn from him. Each of us on our own way, on a personal way, and the family together, we learn from this experience right now. Whether we are distant, thousands of miles, or across New York, or in a different state, or upstate, or elsewhere, wherever we are, we can see how easily, with a little bit of effort, we can actually come together and to be together. And the Eibishter will help him. That that the Almighty should comfort you amongst the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Together we should have the opportunity of coming together for simchas, and simchadika simchas, lebedika simchas, gesundheit. And remember, in the same way that we've come together from all the four corners of the earth and across the states of New York, of America, we've come together for this tzara. We should find ways to come together and ensure that the Sabol families, both in Monsey and upstate New York, never feel alone, that they're always together with us, and we will be with you. And the Eibishter should give us the koyach to be able to share with you simchas, gesundheit, and we should come together only in goodness, and we should all be zocher to a chag kosher v'sameach, a kosher and freilich and yontev, gesundheit and freilicheit.
Amen. Thank you very much, Rabbi Sufrin, for those heartfelt and moving words. Hi, I'm trying to keep it together. Okay, thank you again. And I know it means a lot to the family. Also want to let you know that if you would like to, you can send an email to sabelfamilymuncie@gmail.com to send them, if you want to send an email wishing them Nichum Avelim, again, sabelfamilymuncie@gmail. One of the many things that Uncle Gershon was involved with, as we all know, was helping special children. And for over 25 years, Uncle Gershon was involved in this endeavor. And one of the people that he came in contact through this work is Rabbi Baruch Rabinowitz, who he himself is an activist and an asken in helping these children. And over this 25 years, they have built a bond together of a real friendship, a true friendship, a working relationship as on a business level, but also on a personal level, this relationship that they have built. And Uncle Gershon, I know, was trying to bring Rabbi Rabinowitz more and more into the work, as Rabbi Rabinowitz often speaks, to give words of Yisroel and chizuk to families and to parents that are dealing with these situations, and to try to make it so much better for them. And so it is our honor that Rabbi Baruch Rabinowitz agreed to join us this evening to share with us some divrei Yisroel and some knowledge about Rabbi Gershon Sabol.
It's so hard to believe that we're speaking about Rabbi Gershon already in the past. These 48 hours have been so difficult and so challenging. To think that Natalia Yedid, our leader, our mentor, is not here. He's beyond. It's beyond belief. It's beyond comprehension. The Rabbi Gershon came down and took a korban sibur. What does it mean to be a korban sibur? What does it mean to be a sacrifice of the sibur? It means that he comes down. The Gemara in Baba Kama tells us that the Rabbi Shalom comes down. He makes him a geifer. The first ones he takes are the tzaddikim. The first ones he takes are the most righteous people. Why does he do that? Why is he taking the most righteous people first? One of the things is because the most righteous people are the ones that are closest to him. The ones who live their life in the derech of the Rabbi Shalom are closest to him. They're closest to Shemayim. And the other reason is it's a wake-up call to all of us. To all Yedidim and all friends and all Mushpoim. That here's a Yid who was Molei V'Godish, who was filled with the Yud Gimel Midas of the Rabbi Shalom. Alle Yud Gimel Midas, K'Yachum Mechanan Erechapayim. He embodied them, he lived them. He didn't preach them. He lived by example. And the Rabbi Shem wants us to wake up and to realize he's gone. And we need to be mizdabek b'midoisov in his midos, which are the midos of the Rabbi Shalom. It's our pasuk in Shea Shirim. The pasuk tells us HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down to this world, Lulkat by Shoshanim. He comes down to the world to come and to select from the Shoshanim, from the rose. What's Pshat that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's coming to take from a rose? What does it mean from a rose? Zak the Heilige Zohar HaKodesh, and Ibn Ezra brings it down. Elu tzadikayo, these are the tzadikim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's picking tzadikim. What? Why is a rose a tzadik? Why is it tzadik like a rose? Steht in Zohar HaKodesh, Kishoshana ben Achoichem, Kein Rayosi ben Abonois. Shoshana, just like a rose, has 13 petals. So also Knesset Yisroel. So also the tzaddikim of Knesset Yisroel have 13 petals. The petals are the midas harachimim of the Eibishter. Hashem, Kol Yachum V'Chanan Erech Apayim. Each of those midas. All of us are commanded, all of us are given a mission to live in this life, to live in this world. Not for the purpose of taking and getting and giving ourselves, not for the purpose of pleasure, enjoyment, of narcissism and self-aggrandizement. All of us are put into this world to live a higher order, a life of giving, a life of sharing, of caring, a life of focusing on the needs of others, a life of feeling, thoughts, and concerns, all for other people. Somebody who lives his life with midas rachum and chanan and erchapayim. Somebody who lives his life with rav chesed. Somebody who lives his life looking to give to other people is living a life of a yalachta b'dracha. He's looking to live a life of yahavta Hashem alikecha b'chol levavcha. He's looking to life Shem Shemayim Misai V'Yodecha, that the Rabbi Shalom's name should be publicized in this world through the Gimel Midas Rachamim. A person who feels it's his mission to carry out this Midas Harachamim, to be the Shoshana, to be that beautiful rose filled with 13 petals. And if a person lives that way, he lives a life of ruchnius in this world. And he's destined to an Olam Haba and a Gan Eden, to be a rose in the garden of the Rabbi Shalom. When the Rabbi Shalom comes down, he takes the Shoshana from this garden, he takes it to his garden. What's it? Gershon, his whole life was living for others. He don't think about himself. I came into his office a few weeks ago. He's putting eye drops in for his little eye condition that he had. I right away asked him, Rabbi Gershon, how are your eyes? What? My eyes. How are you feeling? How are you doing? How's the mishpacha? Are you exercising? Are you eating? Are you taking care of yourself? You make time for yourself. Everything about Yenim, caring for the other person. Then we spoke about the work that they brought me in a year ago, a little bit part-time, to work in Yidei Chesed, and to be able to be part of the unbelievable Chesed, the Adayim of Chesed, the Guf and Rosh is Rabbi Gershon. Rabbi Gershon was the heart and the head and the Adayim, all of us working around him to bring down the Poyel, the Maisa, the Machshavot, the Maisa, to the Adayim. And he'd sit down and he'd say, okay, Rabbi Baruch, which families did you meet? Who can we help? How can we help them? Called in some other people. He wanted to know exactly, are we doing enough for them? Do they feel we're doing enough for them? If they don't feel it, then it's not a complete chesed. And yes, there were times in which the staff would say to him, maybe we have to put in this project, do this extra. And with his his insight, his intuition, and his gewaltige siyata l'shmaya, nay, this family, we have to hold off a little bit. They need to want it. They need to search it. They need to take it under their own control. They need to be able to make the phone call. Let's monitor it to see how long it'll take. But that's the biggest chesed we can do for them. Yeah, they're mensch. What's the chesed for him? What's the chesed that person needs? How to be able to do it. And he did it. Mamish b'derech the derech of the Rabbi Shalom. My Rebbe Aglan Rabbi Shapir used to say, the aside of the giving of the Rabbi Shalom, the aside of chesed HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for the world is shaloi almanas lahachzir. Hashem is not looking for anything for himself. Hashem just wants the kulei chesed for us. It's only to give to us and to share with us and to give chesed to us and to do for us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not looking for anything in return. He's not missing anything. The Ein Sof is Ein Sof. He doesn't need us. Oh, but we need him. And the Rabbi Shalom gives us a person who lives his life doing chesed and wants praise and wants a dinner and wants a plaque. It's almanas lahachzir. A man should live.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi Rabinowitz. Thank you, Rabbi Rabinowitz, for those heartfelt words. We really appreciate that. And earlier today, I was speaking with Rabbi Rabinowitz, trying to work out this last-minute program, and he told me that a few months ago, Gershon told him, I'm letting you know, I am working things out, that if tomorrow I am not here, all the work I do now will be able to continue on without me. And he said, what do you mean, Gershon, you're going to be here forever and everything will be fine or whatever it is. But he said, one does not know what the Eibishter has in mind. And I have to know that if I'm not here tomorrow, the good work that we do continues. And I think in that itself is a lesson to be learned. A lot about, Gershon really had a lot to teach, as here we only have a limited amount of time to share about this. And I do want to pick up on something that Rabbi Sufrin said in regards to the children. My dear cousins, I know I don't have to tell this to you, how much your father loved you very, very much. He cared for you. He never complained about you. I'm meaning to say behind your back. Parents, for whatever reason, we think it's very cute to make fun of our kids when they're not looking and kvetch about them and complain, and when we should be really thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for all the blessings. I've never, ever heard Gershon complain about any of his kids. He loved every single one of them. He was proud of them. He recognized that each person is an individual, and what's good for one is not good for the next, and every person has to do what is correct for them. And it's really something to learn about this. And while Gershon out in the workplace was a lion, he was ready to conquer, and he was ready to do good. And the lion that talks about in Shulchan Aruch. When he came home, everything was about his wife. And I think that in truth, when he was out there, he's only the lion because he had that rock at home, and he relied on Rachel so much. And many of our cousins all remember of how he would always turn around to Rachel. It doesn't matter, it was big or small, something that happening. He was always turning around to her and, what's going on? What do we do? As if all of a sudden he doesn't know what's going on. But the joy that he had from little children, and his children, his Einiklach, someone else's kids, he would bend down to pick them up and love them and buy them something special, meant a lot to him. Family meant a lot to him. His family meant a lot to him, but Hashem's family, every Jew meant so much to him. I do want to make two thank yous at this point. First of all, I'd like to thank Anash.org for hosting this and taking care of the technical part of allowing our family and so many friends coming together to be able to make this happen. We couldn't do it without you, and it really means a lot to our mishpacha. Last minute, you really did a lot of work, and all day you were working on trying to make sure that everything should stream smoothly, and it means a lot to us. So thank you in the name of myself and the name of my whole family. Also, I want to give a special shout out to my Uncle Shimon. Rabbi Shimon was really a very big push and inspiration to make this happen. Thank you to Uncle Shimon for what we did together with the family on Zoom as a family get-together, but also this in the larger community. Really, I know we asked him to speak, but he said he wasn't up to speaking. As others told me also trying to get speakers, they said they weren't up to it. We understand that, but I just want to say thank you, Uncle Shimon. There are many people who get thank yous, but really, Uncle Shimon, thank you very much to giving us this gift that we be able to connect in this way at this time. Our next speaker is my eldest uncle, Rabbi Sholom Ber Hecht, Uncle Gershon's eldest brother. He is the executive director of the NCFJE, also the scenic Sephardic rabbi in, I think I just said scenic, I meant senior, the senior Sephardic rabbi in Queens for close to 50 years. And Rabbi Sholom Ber has, of course, from a perspective of being a brother and being within the family, of course, he has that connection, but also from my uncle's involvement in the community also has such a type of a connection. And so we are very lucky and happy that he agreed to share with us a few words tonight. Rabbi Sholom Ber.
Brothers and sisters, nephews and nieces, children, Rachel, David, Freddie, Rachel, your children. In my nearly 50 years as a community Rav, I often said that there are two types of people that I cannot eulogize properly. One is a Holocaust survivor, and the other is a mother of a large family. I always felt that I just couldn't rise up to their lofty positions, and I would not be able to give true expression to speaking about them and eulogizing them in the proper way. Today, I have to add something that I never imagined would ever happen. And I have to say that I cannot eulogize a younger brother. So, let me just say, I want to express my bracha of nichum in whatever way I can. First of all, to Rachel and to David, to all the children, to Freddie, to all of our siblings, to our children. Hamaki menachem eschem b'seich shara ve'elzin v'shalayim, or as we say in our Sephardic community, Menas Shemayim Tenuchamu. And this, of course, is on my behalf, and Chana joins me in all of these expressions and all of these feelings. Interestingly, I had a call today from someone in Eretz Yisroel who knew Gershon and David, actually, who knew Gershon when they were Bochum years ago. He had heard of the terrible thing that had happened, and he began to speak about the nice things that he knew about Gershon and to tell me about some of the memories that he had. I also had an interesting call from a friend, or actually a neighbor of Gershon's and Rachel's in Monsey, a person that I'm very friendly with on a personal basis, and he just couldn't stop talking about them. He told them how he had a kiddush once in his house. He spent an hour speaking with Gershon, and in every subject that he spoke about, whether it was in Torah, whether it was in human relations, whether it was dealing with special cases. In fact, there was a non-Jew who was present at that particular event, and Gershon, in his wisdom and in his very, very special way, was able to make the non-Jew feel so comfortable in the Shabbos afternoon Kiddush. His professional expertise was something that was recognized in Monsey. It was recognized in Rockland County. It was recognized in New York. And it was actually recognized all around the world. I asked my daughter in Australia, and she will tell about the wonderful help that he gave and extended to them in Australia when there were issues dealing with special education for special children. In all of his areas of his expertise, we knew Gershon as the person, as our go-to person, whether it was something that dealt with chinuch, whether it was something that dealt with special needs, whether it was something that dealt with community involvement. He was a go-to person, whether it was to one of my children, whether it was to a nephew, whether it was to a sibling. I knew that he was a person that would have the answers. If not, he would find the answers. And he was a person that could be relied on. He was the person who would give the wisest suggestions, advice, based on the years of experience and knowledge that he had. And this ability was something which helped our family. It helped the community that he worked with, but it also helped our family many times. In a few days, we're going to celebrate Pesach. And we find the Torah tells us first how God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, commands him about the Korban Pesach, and then he tells Moshe, "Vayikra Moshe l'chol ziknei Yisroel v'yomer aleihem mishlochu chatzayin." Moshe comes to the Jewish people, and he begins to teach them the laws of Pesach. And he says, you have to shecht this sheep, take the blood and place the blood on the mezuzos, on the doorposts, and on the lintel over the door. And then he tells them about the mitzvah of eating that first, celebrating that first Seder together with their family, matzah, moror, Pesach. But then there was another special mitzvah that was given to the Jewish people that night, which didn't apply in any later years. The atem lo teitzu ish mi Pesach beisoi ad boiker. You must stay confined to your homes until the morning. And interestingly, the Torah goes on to say that in that night there will be a terrible plague brought upon the Egyptians, the last of the 10 plagues, and when you put the blood on the doorposts and you remain isolated in your homes, it will make sure that whatever force there is, whatever forces of punishment, the forces of suffering that is in the world, will not enter into your homes and will not cause you any suffering, will not cause you any damage. And the commentaries are all what's going on here. The Eibishter says, God says clearly on the night of the death of the firstborn, Ani Hashem loy malach loy saraf. God Himself was the one. What do you mean that you have to protect the people? God Himself was the one there. And they go into all types of different explanations, and many explanations and answers are given to this particular question. You know, there's another time that we have to isolate our families and not mix and not go out into society. And that is, of course, Rahman al-Islam, when a family is in mourning. When a family is in mourning, the week of Avelis, they have to isolate themselves at home, to close their relationship with the commerce of the world, to stick together as a family, and somehow, in this way, by cutting off from society, they strengthen themselves and they find that consolation, that strength, that hope for the future, which is so necessary for a family in mourning. But now we're also experiencing Lo Yetze Ish Mibeisei. We are living in a time now when, because of the terrible pandemic that is engulfing the world, because of the terrible pandemic which threatens every single one of us, we also have to stay at home. We have to lock ourselves off from society and not have anything to do with anyone. No contact with society. Well, it's a form of Avelis, perhaps. But I believe that there's really another reason why Moshe Rabbeinu told the people, in experiencing that first Pesach, that first experience of freedom, that first experience of eating the matzah and the maror and the korban Pesach, and in preparing themselves for the great exodus which would start the next morning, Hashem wanted every Jewish family to isolate itself, cut itself off from society, cut itself off from its connections with everybody else, and to somehow, in order to later become part of Jewish society, in order later to become part of Am Yisroel, in order later to become part of the people who would stand at Har Sinai to receive the Torah, in order to be proper vessels for all of the blessings that were to come later, they first had to isolate themselves together with their children, together with their families, together with their parents, together with their grandchildren, and only in that fashion to strengthen themselves as a family, and then afterwards to be able to go out and to march to the Geula, to march to the redemption. And this perhaps is also a hidden meaning in the isolation and in the separation which a family observes at the time of Shiva. And so when we, in this medium that we're using now, this medium of technology that we're using to reach out to Rachel and to David and to the family, to the children and to the others, yes, you're isolating yourselves. Yes, you've cut yourselves off from society, just as we are in our homes cutting ourselves off, but for a different reason. But you're cutting yourselves off from society, but the reason for that is to strengthen yourself. The reason for that is because you are facing Geula. The reason for that is you want to march to the Geula. The reason is because you march to that great redemption which stands and is approaching. And we hope and we pray that as we give our consolation, as we give our tanchumin to this particular family, and then to other families who are suffering through this terrible time of pandemic and terrible time of suffering in the world, that we give our consolation to everyone and tell them that as we lock ourselves into our homes, we strengthen ourselves, we strengthen our families, we strengthen this unit of Jewish society, of the Jewish people, so that once we are redeemed and once we are freed, we'll be able to go out and we'll be able to be strong members. We'll be able to receive the Geula properly, and we'll be able to march to that special time when we will come together, just as we once marched to receive Hashem at Har Sinai and to see the great revelations of Matan Torah, so too to see the great revelations which will come with the coming of Mashiach. May it be very soon and very speedily in our time. Sholom Ber Hecht said to us, Tov Shem Mishem and Tov Yom Amavis Mevi Golday. Why are we getting together? We have to recognize that Gershon was a person who was Tov Shem Mishem and Tov, the most perfumed oil. The best shemen that exists in the world is nothing compared to a Shem Tov. He was a person who in his lifetime, everything that he did, the way he treated others, the way he worked with others, the way he respected others, the way he got others to understand him and to accept his advice and his suggestions, gave him the Shem Tov. That Shem Tov, which Sholom Ber Hecht says is the greatest accomplishment that a person can accomplish in his life. It was a relatively short life, and it's hard for us, his siblings, to really to come to terms, to come to grips with this terrible thing that we have, as I said, as a younger brother who passes away. Nevertheless, we hope and we pray that his life will be an example for everyone, first of all for his own children, also for his nephews and nieces, and also for us, even his older siblings. For us too, his life will be an example. And that we will be able to learn from his wonderful accomplishments in life, and to be able to reach that Tov Shem, that good name which he accomplished in his lifetime, that we should all aspire to that, to be able to accomplish those things in our lifetime too. The family has spoken over the last few hours or the last few days about doing something to memorialize the memory of Gershon in the community, in our family, in some area which would be close to the things that he devoted himself to, such as education for special needs and so on. I just want to mention that we have agreed and we have decided that we will be establishing something. The details are not yet worked out, but I want to tell everyone that there will be something, and if you have any sense or have any feeling that you want to help along and you want to be involved, you'll be in touch with us in the next few days. We're putting things together, working out the details, and Be'ez Hashem will be able to do something which will bring a wonderful memorial and a wonderful zechus and honor to his memory. May he be a good Tibet for everyone. And again, my wife joins me in expressing our blessings of Tanchumin to Rachel, to David, to the children, to the family, and let's hope that we'll be able to march forth from our isolation in our homes, to march forth stronger to greet Mashiach. May Dev Yameinu. Amen. Mashiach now. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Uncle Sholom Ber, for your words of chizuk and wisdom. We really appreciate it very much. One of the things that struck me interesting was when chaverim of mine called me to make mention of the terrible news that they have learned of Uncle Gershon's passing. Perhaps one had a child with special needs, and that was his relationship. Perhaps when we were bachim together, they came with me to Uncle Gershon and Aunt Rachel's house for a Friday night dinner, and we'd farbrengen around the table with Uncle Gershon, and anybody that did that would remember a farbrengen with him, because he was a no-nonsense guy and got straight to the point and didn't let you beat around the bush if you try to wiggle your way out of something that he was discussing with you, and got straight to it. And so it made an impression on me. I was thinking to myself, I know how much he meant to me, my siblings, many of my cousins, but I didn't realize how much he meant to so many others. How much, although I knew a lot of the work he did, not everything he did, I didn't realize how much he had touched the lives of other people. And I was thinking to myself, some tips on how to help someone else. If you want to help someone, some tips that I can say I learned from Uncle Gershon. And it's not a finished list, and you can probably add to it just some thoughts as I jotted down words or sentences. And these are things that the way he helped and taught us to help other people. And as I'm going through this list, I keep on thinking, this is Zedi Hecht. And I realized that what's the ultimate gift to a teacher is when the student, the Rebbe, knows that his Talmud is living the lessons, not just, whatever. Yeah, I heard what you told me, but that he really lives this. And it said, by him living this, and I see through him, I see Zedi Hecht is probably the biggest compliment to both of them, both to Zedi and to Uncle Gershon. And I jotted down for myself, humor, love, laughter. It's not about you, but it's about the person you're helping. Care, ask, initiate. Don't wait for the other person to get started. Follow up, probably the biggest and most important part. He would remember and he would follow up. Know what you don't know and know what you do know. And it's fine to sometimes say, I don't know. To be calm, don't rush the person. The person should feel like they're the only thing that's important at that moment in time, that he had that ability to do. And there were times that I called him for certain things, and that was definitely the way he helped me, and he has helped many, many others. And one of the ways that he helped was involved in an organization of Yaldei HaShluchim, to help Shluchim with special children. And I remember when he was first getting involved, that within those few weeks, I was at his house Friday night, and he told me they're starting this new thing, and he was so happy to be able to get involved and to give of himself in this way to help how many more families and how many more people he can help. He was only so happy to be able to help. And so tonight we have with us a shliach, Rabbi Yisroel Wilhelm, who is a shliach at the University of Colorado, who will share with us some of his knowledge of how he has helped so many shluchim and their families.
Thank you very much, everybody. I first of all just want to start off with my speech over here with today's Hayom Yom, which Rabbi Gershon would start every single meeting that we had, whether it was over the telephone or whether it was in person. Rabbi Gershon would be the person who would start it off with the Hayom Yom, and so I would just take the opportunity to do that as well. And I think that it's very relevant to Rabbi Gershon's life. So it says, Hanisoyin. Sorry, this is not from yesterday. This is from a few days. Maybe Hanisoyin Hera Asher. Yeah, it's today. Hanisoyin Hera Kamatim Mechakiris V'Oivdim B'Seider B'Toikev Al Piani Imush Shel Torah Yamin Mekarebes U'Smol Doicha Azai Poyalim Bevadai U'Befrat Be'Inyonim Ha'ikrim Mi'Ikrei Hadas. Experience has shown with less speculation that working with order and firmness in accord with pleasantness of Torah, with the right hand bringing close and the left hand rejecting, one is certain to achieve results, especially in matters concerning the fundamentals of Yiddishkeit. How much more appropriate can it be to have such a Hayom Yom today for Rabbi Gershon? It's almost, for me, it's almost every single thing that it said there. And the truth is, I would like to speak directly to the mishpacha, most of whom I've never met in person. And what's really amazing about me speaking here is that I don't even know you. And I hope that in some way we do know each other. I'm not only speaking on behalf of the Yaldei Shulchan HaRebbe, an organization that was so dear to Rabbi Gershon, and on behalf of the other board members and employees. I'm also Pashut, I think I'm the only one over here who's speaking as a parent of a child with special needs, to be able to at least share with you, the family, who I'm really speaking to, what's going on. You know, I'm sorry, a little bit about his life. And, you know, I'll be honest that, yes, you know, unfortunately, we are hearing a lot of Suris Rois in the last week or so, but this one really, you know, did hit me hard. I look back to when we first started this Moisid, and for those who don't know, the foundation of this Moisid, and still is to help shluchim around the world who have a child with special needs, who are not, you know, within the communities that need a lot of help, and so, you know, when we started with a young group of younger light. I think I was a young man. I had just found out not long before that my son was diagnosed with autism, Yitzi. And, you know, we had a lot of good ideas. We were hot-headed. We had a lot of determination, but there was no way that we can actually make it happen, because he gave us the ability to actually, you know, give us the koiches, or the structure, to make it happen. I'm not going to mention what's already been mentioned, that every single person said that he always walked around, you know, with the Dvar Malchus. That was something that, you know, he even got one of the staff, he got them to learn Shlosh Prakim Rambam. He was upset that he was only learning one Perek Rambam. He said he's too busy, and he got him to learn 3 Prakim Rambam, which is very classic. But, you know, in the beginning, I felt really bad to bother him. You know, we all know he gives off this feel that he was a busy person. He didn't have a lot of time, and I didn't know him, you know, and specifically about me, how can I, you know, was one thing, I got to know him, I felt connected, but you know, people used to call me, my chaverim from around the world, some of who I know, most of who I didn't know, and I, you know, wanted to send them to him. And he kept assuring me that it's okay. And, you know, then I started sending people straight to him. And I can tell you personally that he helped tens, if not over hundreds of shluchim worldwide. And obviously this didn't come with any parnasa, any money. It was all, as you know, the mishpacha knows. I don't even know if you know, that's the truth. I don't know what he shared, what he didn't share. And hopefully, Mir Hashem, in time, I would love to meet you in person and be able to share with you more of my personal experience. But the reality is that when it comes to parents with special needs, you need someone who's level-headed. You know, usually you're dealing with parents who are in a very rock-bottom situation, and there's no better person to have on the other side of the phone than Rabbi Gershon. He was, he's Pashut he's irreplaceable. But I'm gonna, but then I remember one thing that he told us at a meeting when we had his in office in Monsey. I spent the summer there, and we had, in addition to me, my wife and I going to speak to him about my son, we had also a meeting with some other people of Yaldi Shlocher Rebbe. So, we were speaking about time management for the workers and his advice, and clearly he was the right person. He showed us a little clock in his room, how he was, a timer, how he had for every single person. And, he was the right person to get advice from. But he was very clear. I remember that meeting, and it wasn't just that meeting, it was in general, that we were working in the Rebbe's Meiser, and specifically with the Rebbe's children. And therefore, to never, don't worry about time management, just go, and he was calm, but in this very firm way, he pushed all of us to do what needed to be done. Now, I'll tell you the truth, when you heard the words V'chatchila Riba from Rabbi Gershon, you took it seriously. He wasn't a hot-headed guy with big Chassidish words just to sound good. He didn't say things, because whatever. When you heard him speak, you knew that he meant it. And another amazing thing was that even though he was a mumcha, he empowered not just the people working for Yaldei, but as a parent, he empowered the parents as showing us the taka. He is the person, we are the right people, the right shluchim for our children. He was very, very into that. I'll just end off over here that the last time I saw Rabbi Gershon Sabol, your husband, your father, your uncle, whoever is related to you, was this past summer at the barbecue for the Yaldei, the fundraiser. And of course, he's with Bar Malchus, and we spent a lot of time talking about the different situations, the different shluchim. First of all, he had an incredible, unlike many people in our community, he had an incredible sense for privacy. He wouldn't just speak to me with names, unless it was something very specific that I'd spoken to him about and he wanted to follow up on. And the fact that he remembered every situation and every person, and he wanted to make sure how he can help and let me know and advice. But that was a side point. But to him, coming to this barbecue, everybody else, it was a party, it was a celebration. To him, it was business. It was business. He came not long into, after an hour and a half, he came, everybody's there, saying l'chaim, having a good time, food, enjoying MBD, and he came and he said goodbye. So I said, why don't you stay a little bit longer, enjoy? He said, no, I got to get to sleep. I got to sleep on time. I have a day tomorrow. So I just want to end off like this, that on a very, very personal note, on behalf of hundreds of shluchim, I want to say thank you to his family for the time that he gave us. It's really hard for me to explain you how much Reb Gershon helped shluchim at our worst moments. Being a parent of a child with special needs is already lonely. And being on shluchis with a child of special needs, the challenge is even lonelier. And many of us would call him, not when the situation was pretty. And very often we would think that if only we lived in New York, and only if you lived around other, from communities, how much easier it would be. And with a calm voice, he always reminded us the grass is not green on the other side. And basically being honest, you are the shluchim for this child. And yeah, it's not going to be easy. My wife always says that a very defining moment in raising our child was that she was calling him and complaining to him. She's getting this call from this school and other school and this principal. And she's like overwhelmed. And it was right in the beginning, we're not sure what to do. So he said to her, Mrs. Wilhelm, get used to it. They're going to be calling you for a long time. So with that, I would like to wish and Hashem should give you the nechama that only Hashem should be able to give you, and b'schus all the families and mishpachas, not just for the shluchim, but as we know in Monsey, and how many people he helped. I'll be committed to continuing his avodas hakodesh with all the special needs children around the world. The shluchim are raising, and we said tak zoiche sein. It's exempt in the Rebbe, take it from miyad. Only simchas b'toiv hanirev hanigla. Thank you very much for allowing me to say a few words.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Wilhelm. When Zaidi Hecht passed away, Uncle Gershon at that time wrote into the Rebbe and he was asking the Rebbe. He mentioned different things that he was doing. There was a question about different things, and at that time he was given by the Rebbe I don't know if this is a Harira Klolis, that this is supposed to, that everybody will translate this however they want, but he was told at that time to continue to say the capital Tilim to Zedi Hecht, and he continued to say it. So this is something you can decide on your own, but I know in the family many have decided to say Uncle Gershon's capital, which Rabbi Sabol's capital this year is Samach Hey until his birthday during the summer, and we will continue to say that for Uncle Gershon. The last speaker is my dear father, and I am going to and he is going to share with us a few words, and he will sign off this evening. I just want to make mention, I am hoping that one of the things he will mention is the many different organizations that Uncle Gershon was involved with throughout his career, if you can call it that. From the time of a Bacher, so many different organizations and different mitzvahs and tzedakahs that he was involved with in a big way. And I just want to make mention, it's not that he didn't have a good job and had to find a new job every 2 weeks, but he did this because he cared, and he was juggling multiple moistus at the same time. While he's fully working for Bikur Cholim in Monsey and Yidei Chesed, he was also serving on the board of the local school for the Lubavitch Cheder, and starting Yaldei and doing all these other things. So Uncle Gershon never stopped to give of himself. He continued to give and to give. And so now we call upon my dear father, Rabbi Shea Hecht, and the chairman of the NCFJE, to please share with us some words of chizuk and to close out this program. Thank you again for joining.
I have to put it together, and I'm also limited with time. So again, you're going to get an email with all of the look into your email. You're going to get 3 seconds before you're going to ask the person I don't know how to do it. You're going to get a paragraph. You're going to get them on our side.
Rabbi Hecht, you're muted.
We're good now. We're good now.
Yeah, you're good now. So you were muted for the last minute.
Okay, we're starting again.
Okay.
You start again from the beginning, from the top.
Choshev Rabbanim, Mashpiim, friends, co-workers, and of course, my dear family. What can I get up here and say to you, Rachel, to Levi Yitzchak, to Chani, to Pinny, to Rivki, to Shmuli, to Yankel, to Mendel, for me to try to take a few minutes and capitalize who Gershon was, who your father was, who your husband was, would be somewhat ridiculous. But I am somewhat the lover of Pirkei Avos, and I thought I would just take a Mishnah and Mishnah Yisiyas Neshama and talk about the Mishnah and how it applies to Gershon. The Mishnah addresses the 4 quests, the 4 desires, the 4 things that every person wants. What do people want? People want to be smart, influential, strong, have power. People want to be rich. People want to be honorable. And the Mishnah addresses these 4 things. And I think that Gershon was blessed with these 4 blessings. It's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, chapter 4, Mishnah 1. The Mishnah begins, Ben Zoyma Imer, a Zehu Chacham, who is a wise person, a Loimed Mikol Adam. Who is truly a wise person? Well, those around Gershon knew that Gershon was a wise person. He was wise for himself, he was wise for his family, but more importantly, he gave others advice. I came to him either on a personal, but surely on a communal, often would talk about my mistakes that I was zoicha to be involved in with my brothers. People would come to him from various different institutions from around. After all, he did build the organization that he worked for, Yidei Chesed. And as mentioned before, Rabbi Rabinowitz, truly Yidei Chesed, it was the hands of Chesed. From a small little organization to be close to a $20 million budget, and to have so many homes and so many families and so many people that he was able to help. So the first bracha that the Mishnah addresses, Ezeu Chacham, Gershon was a Chacham. He was a wise person and gave others advice. The second thing that the Mishnah addresses, Ezeu Gibor. Who is a strong person? Who is a person that has authority, a leader? And this, once again, was Gershon. Yes, if it's a kovish Yisroel, and we spoke about that he was always involved in Torah, holding it for Malchus and always learning, but he had a certain strength. I was speaking to a young man today from Williamsburg, and I mentioned the passing of my brother Gershon. He says, Gershon Sabol, Rabbi Sabol, he says, I played music for his institution 12 years ago, and 11 years ago, and 10 years ago. And I remember one thing about him. He was a leader. He was a leader. A Zehu Gibor, who is a strong person who demonstrates leadership. This was Gershon. The next thing, the Mishnah mentions, a Zehu Oshir, Hasameach Bechelkoi. Who is a true rich person? This is a person who was Hasameach Bechelkoi. Now, I do want to make mention that Gershon entire life, he worked for Meistis. But he had the philosophy that even when you work for a Meisid, and I know he used to argue with me about this often, he says, executive directors of Meistis have to pay themselves a living wage. They have to be able to support their family. They have to be able to even go on vacation. They have to be able to drive a nicer car. The concept of a Sameach Bechelkoi. But he truly lived a Sameach Bechelkoi. When we would come to him for Shabbos, I'd wake up early. I'd see him sitting with a sefer. Perhaps if it was in the warmer climate, he would be sitting out on his back porch, sitting with a Maimah Chasidus, having his special brewed coffee. I'd say to him, "No, you woke up, you went to the mikveh." "Yeah, I was 6 o'clock, I was in the mikveh already. I came back, I finished the mimer, I'm enjoying a cup of coffee, sit down, have something to eat." And again, he honored Shabbos in such a way. When we came to him for Shabbos, he would go out and buy a special bottle of wine. He would go out and buy a special coffee. He would go out and buy special, as my father would use these words, patravis, different delicacies that he had. And to him, this was a Sameach Bechelkoi. He was able to sit Shabbos by his meal and have a nice cup of wine, or wake up early Shabbos morning and learn his Maimach Chassidus and have a cup of coffee, at a gewinnt zufrieden. He was truly a Samerach Bechelter. The Mishnah then continues and tells us, Eizehu mechubad, who is an honorable person. This is who gives somebody else honor. And I must say, I was involved in many different cases, and because of my travels, often I had to come sometimes to deal with a case in Muncie. So I have a brother there. If I had to ask him about the layout of the landscape, if it was the political landscape, if it was the religious landscape, this Rebbe, that Rebbe, he knew everybody, who I should go, who I should get advice from, stay away from this Bezdin, go closer to this Bezdin. This is a guy who can help you. This is a guy who can be trusted. This is a guy you can work with. Likewise, if I needed a therapist dealing with a family in Muncie, you needed a therapist, I always called him. He always had advice. And this was because a Zeh Mechubad, who is an honorable person, someone who gives others honor. He always gave others honor. Not that he didn't have a very strong opinion. If he didn't like the guy, he knew how to stay away completely. He wouldn't have embarrassed the guy openly. Although he did speak up, he did speak his piece. But he gave honor to others, and therefore was truly an honorable person. So I think that when you look at this Mishnah, you can see the four aspects that the Mishnah speaks of that people want. What do people want? Well, we want to be smart. We want to be strong and have power. We want to be rich, and we want to be honored. Gershon conquered these four things. He, Baruch Hashem, was a smart person. And how do we know that he was a chacham? Because he gave others advice. He was strong because he had leadership qualities. Not only did he had self-control, unbelievable discipline. Those who knew his atzlacha was because he had atzlacha in Zman. He was truly a gibor. He was able to discipline his day and would argue with me sometimes and say, Shea, that's not the way you do it. You must break it down to small time periods. And whatever it did, it's true, he had this gadget and that gadget and had people work for him and he knew how to delegate, but it was all a zehu gibor, a kovish es yitzrei. He was able to conquer his time and therefore was able to give leadership to others. Hasmech bechelkoi goes without saying, on a personal level, on a family level, he had somewhat of a joy of his family, of his home, of his living, of his job. He was a true Sameach B'Chelkai, and of course gave others honor. Again, the hour is late, and it's difficult to really capsulize. I just want to make one or two little points. And one thing I think I want to say is a cute story that I'd like to end with. I was involved in helping a young lady in the greater Muncie area receive a get. And there was a number of Bati Dinim that were involved in this. And the setting up of the Bati Dinim, there were certain things that they needed me to set up, and I had to, and others had to be set up. Well, everyone knows that Gershon, Havdol ben Chaim L'Chaim, has a twin brother, David, identical twin. And to help in the case, at that point, I asked David if he would be so kind to help me with obtaining the get for this young lady. Well, sure enough, at a certain point, we were in one of the Bate Dinim, where different people had to testify, and David walked in, and he's standing on the side to do what he had to do. And a guy walks over to him and says to him, hello to David. David did not know who he was. He says, you're probably making a mistake. You think I'm my twin brother. So he says, yeah, and I'm also my twin brother. As if to say, you're doing something, working with Hecht, which wasn't 100% legal, at least according to some opinions. Of course, everything what we did was 100% according to Torah. So he said, oh, he thought Gershon was just making believe. So I said, no, he actually has a twin brother, and you thinking of Gershon was involved in Yedei Chesed. But so even there, he was able to spread the love and help other people by just simply having another person looking like him. It was a cute little story. I just want to end with the following. In my organizational meetings with Gershon, and sometimes I brought some of my staff to get guidance from Gershon, or Gershon came to Brooklyn to meet with us and give us advice. The one thing he would always talk about, and sometimes often with my brothers as well, that every organization needs succession. The success of an organization is where you're going tomorrow. And here I am now appealing to my family. I appeal to my nephews and nieces. I appeal to my own children and say that the one thing what Gershon would tell us is we have to continue to do the work. Succession. No project should stand only on one person. And there's no question about it, Gershon built a little organization to a monster size, helping hundreds and hundreds of families, where I meet people and they say, wow, Gershon is your brother. Wow, I just want to let you know, he saved my family. He saved our issues. If it was a question of, because of the children and their successful challenges, saved our Sholom Bayis and saved our family, saved the relationship with grandparents many times, etc. So succession, if it's in one word, it's important to know we got to continue to do the work. My brother Rabbi Sholom Ber spoke about that in Mirz Hashem in the next few days we'll be making an announcement of doing a project for one of our institutions in Gershon's memory. My son also mentioned before that Gershon was involved in different meises, and I just think as a schus, I just want to again mention the 20 or so different institutions that he was involved in. Even before he was married, he was involved in Camp Gan Yisroel, as we mentioned before, as a staff member and also the higher staff member. He was involved in deprogrammings. He worked with us in bringing many young men and women back to Torah and Yiddishkeit. He worked for NCFGE, Meister Shalah, Hadara Torah, Camp Shalah he ran for a few summers. Machan Chana he was involved in, Yeshiva Tenchet Tmim in Montreal, Beis Rivka in Montreal. He ran Pardes Chana for a number of years. He then got involved in Lubavitch Yeshiva on Ocean Parkway. He was involved in Old Health Children's Home. He was involved in Bikur Cholim of Muncie, Yedei Chesed in Muncie, and of course the Yaldei Shluchim, which is his big thing that he has been carrying now within the Lubavitch worldwide community. Hundreds of families have been helped by Rabbi Gershon ben Avram. Hundreds of families and individuals have been helped by the good work and advice of Rabbi Gershon. I still want to make one mention because he used to speak about his mentors, and I'm not to exclude others, but I think it's proper to mention right now, of course, Rabbi J.J. Hecht, who he not only being brought up in our home, and he had certain, really, he did have, it was mentioned before, that Gershon had some of my father's special qualities. And one of them was he had a certain breitkeit. You know, when it came to Shabbos Yontif, he spent money, he didn't care. He had a certain broadness and a certain thriftiness that was very, very special. The Kovet Shabbos and Yontif, he bought something nice. If he bought something for his wife, or he did so in a very, very glamorous way. So he was truly, and also in the Meises, he told me many times that working directly under Rabbi Hecht gave him guidance how to work. And later, for many, many years, he worked in Montreal under the leadership of Rabbi Label Kramer. And there too, he says, I understood the man, and I was able to work with him, and I was able to get things done. And he really, there too, they built Beis Rivka from a small little yeshiva to, at that time, it became really one of the biggest institutions for girls, not only one of the biggest Beis Rivkas really in the entire world, within the world of Lubavitch. All I can say is, once again, to my dear sister-in-law, to my nephews and nieces, there's nothing that I can say. I don't have an answer. I can't tell you. It can't explain, but like the family sat around yesterday, and my son Levi said so correctly, over the next few weeks and the next few months and even years, you'll have people come over to you and say to you, wow, Gershon was your father. Let me tell you a story. He helped me. He helped my cousin. He helped my friend. He helped our institution. He did something. And you will hear story and story and story that's coming forward. I know we live in a world of technology, and therefore these stories can go a lot quicker than it was. And, you know, when my father passed away, we would have to, you know, hear the stories. It would take time till it would trickle back to us. Hopefully today it'll come back quicker to you. So hopefully these will give you some type of chizuk and strength to know that although he lived 64 years, he accomplished way more than any head of a Mosid of 64 years old. And the work will continue. That's one thing we know about Ruchnius. It's not where it stopped now. No, the things that he set in place, the people that he helped, that these people are now helping others, the people that he trained that are now helping others and doing for others. This will continue in that way and will be a schus for your father, a schus for your husband, a schus for your uncle. And every time we do something, if we learn something or give tzedakah, we will bring an aliyah for his neshama to go higher and higher. And of course, the most difficult thing is that we can't even sit together as a family and cry on each other's shoulders and to express our love and concern for one another. And maybe this too was because your father was a humble guy. He didn't want it about him. We said before, it wasn't about him. It was about getting the job done. And Gershon want that we should be getting together, you know, for him and talking about him. But we will continue to do what he lived for. It'll give us inspiration in our ruchnius, in our gashmius, in our helping of other people, and our doing it for the institutions that come and ask of us of our help. May Hashem help and bring about the prophecy, the fulfillment of the prophecy, that Hashem will wipe the tears of every single eye, and that death will be eradicated, will vanish from the earth, and God Himself will wipe our tears with coming of Mashiach b'mheira v'yumeinu. Amen, amen, v'amen. Rabbi Yitzchak?